Y'all know my history. I have 20 years with Sherwin-Williams. Couple safety rules, guidelines. Like everything else, safety's key, guys. Just like everything else, you can do some serious damage in paint. OSHA has a big hand in that. Y'all all familiar with them? They come on a job site, you go on a ladder without something tied off, you're gonna get busted. That being said, a couple things safety related. Personal hygiene, how you dress. A long beard, no offense, that can get caught up on stuff. Things like that. Just take into account respiratory hazards. There's a lot of things going into paint that are not to be breathed in. I can't tell you how many calls I got from the hospital. Such and such has been working with such and such. Can you send me the MSDS sheet so we know how to treat them? Their lungs are burned. It can happen. Fall hazards. Y'all know you get up on a 32-foot ladder, it's a long way down. 40-foot ladder, long way down. A lot of guys I've worked with throughout the years, falling off a ladder, broke their backs, broke their necks, broken legs. Had to have almost job-ending surgeries. Lead and asbestos, painting tool hazards. That spray rig we use, that sucker's firing at over 3,000 PSI.
And will cut through.
You shoot that at your hand, it's going through, believe me. I can't tell you how many painters I've had that end up in the hospital where they've injected paint. And it's toxic. When it gets in the bloodstream, you can lose an arm, you can lose more than that. Keep that in mind. I mentioned earlier the MSDS sheets. That is the technical data sheets for every product that is manufactured. As far as what's in that, different makeups, and what to do if exposed.
It's basically like an ingredients list, right?
Correct.
Tells you what's all in there. So
That and how to, if you ingest it and what have you,
Yeah.
how to flush it
How
out
to
of your
flush it
eye.
out.
does anybody know what the acronym MSDS stands for?
It is
Yeah.
We talked about OSHA earlier. What's OSHA stand for?
And then
There you go. Perfect. All right. That being said, we're going to go through some of the tools. We talked about safety, on scaffolding, off of a high rise. What do we got here? Safety harness. Who else used a safety harness? Who else has been on a ladder? You are above a 6-foot ladder and you're not tied off, and OSHA comes up on your job site, you will get rolled up. That is a regulation. So that being said, let's keep that in mind. We've got dust masks. There are a multitude of different options. Depending on what you're doing, it can go from a simple dust mask to a full face air supplied respirator. I told you about some of these toxic substances that are in there. There are some materials that some of these guys are, especially in industrial, you do not want to be breathing. So that's where these respirators come into play. Simple gloves up to heavy duty. Again, some of these products will go through your skin.
Not to mention the thinner and stuff you got to
Exactly.
clean up with.
If you're working on a commercial job site, they will require you to wear a hard hat. They're building just like you. You don't want to get hit by a 2x4. Safety glasses. When you're sanding, working with mold, mildew, stuff like that, again, your eye is an access point to the inner part of your body. Let's protect it. Spray suits. This is when you're spraying, again, underneath crawl spaces like that, where you're working tight confined areas, lead-based materials. These are all things to protect you. All right, some of the tools, we're gonna start from the beginning, like you're with earplugs too. If you're working with spray rigs, stuff like that, protect your ears. Same as you're using power tools, anything like that. Over time, it will damage your eardrums. Several different tools that we use: scrapers, putty knives, 5-in-1, opening paint cans, simple scraping, joint tape.
why is it called
Knife blade.
5-in-1?
5 different things.
5 different tools. Don't ask me what they are because I can't remember. Scraper, you got a roller cover cleaner, use a kind of paint can opener, you pick out nails, stuff like that. There you go. That being said, some of the products used to patch walls, there's different spackles, joint compounds, lightweight. The industry is based on time, like everything else. You've got quick turnaround materials, you've got slow drying materials. It all depends on what you're comfortable using. Usually you'll end up just about in the same spot. That lightweight spackle, the reason it's called lightweight, dries quick, less than 30 minutes, you're ready to paint, prime, whatever. If you're gonna put something hanging off the wall, they've got some heavier duty materials where you can put a screw through it. It's not gonna crack or bust. You got a big hole in the wall, you've got your patching materials. Quick patches. I know y'all have used those. Familiar with the 20, 45, 90-minute mud? Everybody use that, correct? Floating out sheetrock, stuff like that. Used for patches too. 5-minute mud's a good one. I will say this, the quicker the dry material, the hotter that material is. What do I mean by that? It's got a lot of, when you're painting priming it, it's gonna burn through your product. Who's had it where it's blistered, bubbled, stuff like that when you go to paint? Happens all the time. New fresh drywall stuff, don't let it actually dry out and cure. Cure is a huge term in the industry. If it's not cured or dried, it ain't ready to use. So, sanding blocks, sandpaper. Who's used? You can't answer. What's that?
Hole sander.
What kind? Hole sander. Yep, 9-inch. They make various types. The Radius has one that's a circle. Who's sanding with one of those and it flips over? What happens? Gouges the heck out of it. So there's some that do not flip over. The Radius round ones, they won't flip. Scraper, sprayed, got stuff on the window. All right. Rags, that's a big one in the industry. All right, we're gonna move on to protective. Once you get your sheetrock hung and ready, what you gotta do? If you're not if you're not gonna be painting the wall, you're just painting the ceiling. What's that gonna entail?
Masking tape, paper, whatever.
You gotta protect what you're not wanting to paint. Because when you pull out that spray rig, what's gonna happen? Paint's going everywhere. 80% of your time probably on prep, 20% or less on your actual applying materials.
Yep.
Different things you use, plastic. That's a thin mill plastic, so you can tape it along the ceiling, drop it down the walls. You can use it to cover. Paper, masking paper comes in different sizes. You got anywhere from a 2 inch actually, 2 to 18 inches, up to the bigger stuff, depending on what you're covering. I've harped on y'all about drop cloths. This is when you brush and rolling. It actually is a mobile protective covering. You can move it along the floor. You can use it to cover furniture, countertops, whole 9 yards. Different sizes, different thicknesses, different products. You got them in rubber, you got them in canvas, you got them in paper. So depending on what you're doing, how often you're gonna use them. Paint's like everything else, it's an investment, especially if you're in the paint industry, like we are fixing to get into. We wanna invest in our materials.
Pete, before
Yes.
you move past that, you said 80-20, right? 80% of the time you're gonna spend on prep.
Prep.
And if you do any less, you're gonna spend 90 or 100% of the time on cleanup. You know what I mean?
Or
When that
fix it.
overspray or paying for somebody's furniture or...
Time to prep it properly.
And not saying that once you prep, you can be sloppy, but I mean, you almost can't. You can go to town if you prep right?
Right.
And that's the speed of job that you
Absolutely.
want to spend the time on.
There's masking tools where y'all have seen them with the tape and the paper, tape and the plastic. You run across, drop it down. There is equipment out there to speed up what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And then making sure throughout the job too to check it, right? Because that tape will pop or paper will rip or the drop cloth will get pulled off
Correct.
somehow.
Another rule of thumb is you don't want to leave your plastic and your tape up very long, because then your tape the glue starts sticking to what you got it stuck to.
If you're on a
sheetrock.
If you're on a longer job, you're saying you want to make sure that you redress, right?
Well, like say if you're doing an exterior and you're having to cover windows and stuff up, and you're not going to be able to get to the whole house in one day, then rule of thumb is you need to only prep the sides that you're going to be able to get to that day. So once you get finished, you can pull that off. Otherwise, your tape and stuff is staying on there for the duration of the job until you get finished and you don't need it no more. Rule of thumb is, again, do a couple of sides, get them couple prepped, and that be your goal for the day, to get that side completely finished so you can pull that stuff up, and then the next day you'll start again on the opposite. You're not sticking your tape and stuff to metal windows and what have you.
I know this is an elementary question. What do I got? That being said, can I use that product everywhere?
Let me see. What is it?
Can I use the same tube of caulk for everything I'm doing? No. Anybody got a reason why? Who has walked on a job site on an exterior and seen cracks in the party board between the butt joints? Or seen crown molding cracking along the seams? every tube of caulk pretty much has a specific application designed for it. The 1050 quick dry, great for baseboards around doors. When you get it on crown molding and where I'm going with this is the expansion and contraction of that bead of caulk, the stretchability of it. If you look at that outside hardy board, look at the temperatures. Yesterday temperature dropped what? Anybody know?
20 degrees.
20 degrees. What do you think that hardy board did in that 20 degrees? That sucker shrunk like crazy. Every time that thing moves like that, it's pulling on that caulk bead. The more stretchable, higher end material, it's gonna move with that. There are different caulkings designed for different applications. Let's try to pay attention on that. There is specialized items. This is a urethane caulking. What I mean by urethane, it never dries completely hard. It's gonna stay rubbery. Where do we use this? Brick, where you got 2 or 3 different substrates coming together at the same point. Brick and wood, brick and metal. You're gonna have different expansions and contractions.
Is that exterior only, or is that exterior
Interior or
interior?
exterior. It is paintable. However, you gotta wait 24 hours for it to dry before you paint it. It goes back to that cure time. If it's cured, it's ready to go. If it's not, wait. Expansion joints, there are a multitude of varieties, depending again on what we're doing. 2-part products. There's a product that they use for runways that gets struck by lightning.
Wow.
When lightning hits a runway, pops a hole in that asphalt. They come out there, they put a product down, it's dry in less than 5 minutes. So it does not impede air traffic. Who's dealt with a gap that caulking will not fill? Backer rod. Shove that in there first. It fills the void and allows that material to do its job. Who's never heard of backer rod? Everybody heard of backer rod? Okay, good deal. We talked about tape. This goes into your prep. What do I have? Who can tell me the difference?
One's blue and one's green.
True story. Stick time, true. Amber?
Well, we use the blue tape for putting our plastic and stuff up with. The green tape, you can smash down on the edge if you're gonna need to cut in a fine line or in a tight space or what have you, and it's supposed to seal to what you're sticking it to so paint can't get underneath it.
Correct. So let me ask you, you mentioned you use the blue tape to hang your plastic. Why not use duct tape or masking tape?
Because duct tape is serious. It'll stick on the back of it.
What's gonna happen to your substrate? Now, that being said, there are different levels of painter's tape depending on how long it needs to stay on that wall. Anywhere from a couple days to 2 weeks. You can leave that stuff up and pull it off without technically damaging your sheetrock. Going back to the frog tape, it is designed to create fine lines. What this has is sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. So if you tape that line on there, when that paint comes across and hits it, that baking soda expands and creates that sharp line. There's a regular and a delicate tape. If you're working with something like a motorcycle or an automobile, there is a delicate version of this for that.
Hey Pete, what we were talking about, because I didn't know this yesterday, if you're creating an accent wall and you're just wanting to paint it multiple colors, right?
Correct.
So you want to separate that with this
Like if you're
frog
doing
tape.
lines or like I said,
Designs or
just because if you use your regular blue tape, you're going to be cutting those back in with a little bitty brush. This one it actually almost forms a ridge where it blocks that paint from going underneath that frog.
So that's a good tip.
But now that frog tape, you're supposed to take your 5-in-1 after you put it down and press down on the
and move
edge
it
that
down.
you want sealed and pull your 5-in-1 across it real fast because it's supposed to seal it somehow. It's like it warms it up. Like it says, it's got some type of property in it that's supposed to warm that tape up when you do that. That allows it to seal it completely.
We talked about duct tape. It doesn't mean you can't use duct tape. You just got to be careful where you use it. If you're dealing with a concrete slab and you need something that blue tape's probably not going to stick to that concrete. There's a version of that's red. It's called stucco duct tape. When you're painting stucco and stuff like that, blue tape and those others are not going to stick to it. And it goes back to using the right product for what the job is. Y'all have used that recently? Floor shell.
I didn't know there was a different tape for that.
This one is designed for floor protection. Tape those together. There's different versions of this depending on what you're doing, what you're gonna have on that. If you use this product, this thin paper, or even the thinner one than that's the butcher paper, I call it. What's gonna happen if you roll a rolling scaffold across that, or motorized scaffold? You're gonna destroy it, and you're gonna destroy what's underneath that. There's different levels of what you're doing. That's goes into what we're doing with our prep. Getting over to paintbrushes. Who is the adage that you can use the same paintbrush for everything? You can be honest.
If
I would.
right there, you go. That's what I was gonna
There you
say.
go.
So if somebody
Well,
asks you right now, "Hey, go grab that paintbrush," not knowing, you're gonna just start painting, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, yep. There are, depending on what you're painting with, is gonna require a particular brush. I'll tell you this, and I bet y'all, who's been to Sherwin store? Who's been over to the paint brush section and seen the sign that's hanging? Yeah, there you go.
Prices.
The sign that's hanging down there tells you exactly what brush to use for which product. Why is that important?
The way it covers.
The way it
So
covers,
would
the
you
way it
not
brushes.
use same brush for the trim around the door as opposed to the sheetrock on the wall next to it?
Not necessarily that, it's product specific. We've got products over here. I have 5 gallons of material here. Theoretically, I might use 5 different brushes depending on which product I'm using to get the best.
How do you know what
Application.
brush, if you was just to walk up to that, to know which one, if you
It'll
need
tell you
a
on the
brush?
can.